Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Anime Junction Cast, episode number 5, big 5.0.
What's up this week, Mark?
Another week, another dollar is what they say.
Yeah, got a couple dollars over here from the week.
Yeah, definitely got some good stuff. Recently in the process of watching the anime that actually just finished airing, the new Spice and Wolf, which I believe this past week that we're actually recording this back on the, 24th, 25th of September, the first season finished airing. But I'm pretty sure we already have news that a second season's coming, which I'm definitely hopeful for. Talking some other stuff for those that didn't get the chance to see it. There was a exclusive screening, Don, the First Encounter, which was like the first 3 episodes, was in theaters, like about a week or two before the actual anime starts airing, the first week of October. I was able to go see that and got some thoughts on it. We're going to talk a little bit about KiKi's delivery service, which I know later in October, if you're able to go see it, G-Kids is having airing in theaters for about, 3-4 days. And then we'll kind of finish off with because this this episode will be airing first Sunday of October. And obviously it's Spooktober, it's Halloween month and all the stuff like that. So, some stuff to talk about and maybe talk about more, rewatch. I think we got one for next week. They were talking about the Chainsaw Man, definitely, but
Is that what it's called?
I believe it's what it's called. The first one with the
we'll have
dude's
to
face is
look it
like a chainsaw. I remember seeing it, but I didn't, like a lot of things until we started doing this, I just kind of didn't really get into watching
that's
anime.
what it's called.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think it's a decent one. It just lined up perfectly. Wasn't even thinking about it till this weekend. So
Yeah, I don't think we were really playing that, but we just planned on doing it at some point. Just kind of worked out. But yeah, it's one I've wanted to watch. I kind of requested it because I knew when we were doing this that was something I kind of had on my list to get through. So
no, yeah, absolutely. So I guess we'll go right into it. The new Spice and Wolf, essentially. But from what I watched, I definitely enjoyed it. The first thing I noticed was it's not really all that different from the 2008 version of it to this one. I kind of get why, without going into depth on the actual show that we watched, I kind of get why they did a reboot. The story didn't really change a lot, but I think that just goes to show how faithful the original was an adaptation to the light novel. Outside of the one character, I believe Chloe, which I'm trying to remember the actual guy. They changed her in the original anime, but in both the light novel and now in this reboot, changed it back to the male character. It's like the only big thing that I noticed and remembered. Ayari was the guy's name. Sorry, I misremembered his name. As Brandon tried to fix something real quick. But I saw that and I was like, this is a really faithful adaptation. But I also kind of get why they decided to reboot and redo it. First of all, I know we have a slight difference of opinion on how the show looks. I, for the most part, like the new, for lack of a better word, coat of paint and stuff like that, how the show looked. Well, but I also get if they wanted to continue on and actually move on with the rest of it, because the original ended with 2 seasons, that having about a 15-year break and then, here's a season 3 would probably be jarring in terms of pacing and or the animation style and stuff like that.
Exactly. I think the animation style, because like I was saying, there's like this weird, we were talking about it being computer animation. There's like this weird gap where like the computer animation wasn't a stark difference from the hand-drawn stuff there in the beginning. Like, it wasn't that different. You could tell, but not that much. Like, if it were just like a casual viewer, they probably wouldn't even know. They wouldn't even know the difference, to be honest with you. And I didn't even know the Dragon Ball did that for a long time. It wasn't until I was an adult, I was like, oh, yeah, that is different. Like, you can tell the difference.
I guess...
No, I think it looks too good. And that's my problem, because I'm stuck in, the 80s and 90s with anime. I just love that whole hand-drawn aesthetic.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's bad. I think it's too good, and that's my problem. It just looks too sanitized, too clean. But it's by no means bad. For what it is, it looks great. Like, for the style, It looks awesome. It looks really good, so...
No, I guess what I wanted to say was for the 2008 one, it was more of a... because it was probably more or less digital by that point, but it was more imperfect than what we kind of deal with now, because 15, 16 years is a lot of time, for technology and the animation. And I get it. I got the same thoughts. Like, at times, I'm not the biggest fan of the clean. I prefer the hand drawn. I do like the imperfections, but it didn't bother me too much. I thought it looked really good and really clean for the most part.
Yeah.
At the very least, I liked. I think Lawrence looks more of the same, but for Hollow, think her design looks a lot better in this. Because I saw some other people talking about it where her 2008 design looked kind of little toned, more generic. Essentially, would
Yeah.
be a better
That's
word
how
for it.
I feel.
Where she
Yeah.
stands out, she pops a little bit more with the design and stuff like that between the ears, the tail, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I
You could tell with that 2008 series, you can tell the difference. Like to me, I like I said, I watched one episode of that, 5 of the new one, and just based on what I saw for that episode, I generally like that style better.
yeah.
Is it bad? No, not at all. But
I did
you
notice
know,
fairly early on because I can't remember what the thing is though. There were some changes. I can't because I'm still in the process of watching it. 25 episodes is a lot of time to watch in
yeah,
1 week. I just don't have the whole time to watch
yeah,
everything. But I did notice, and from what I looked around, they either removed some minor subplots or they kind of moved some stuff around, which I think works better because there's at times, and I think you notice the more you go in and watch it. I think the pacing in this is a lot better because at
yeah.
times in the old one, I do remember it really grinded, not to I wouldn't say a complete halt, but some of the side stories that you can have in say a light novel and the pacing just works differently because the medium's completely different. Just works better for this type of adaptation. And I was thinking about it because I'd recently rewatched the Lord of the Rings films in theaters. In the process of going back and reading the books and stuff like that, I just thought it as a good comparison where something that works
You're
really well for a book has to have changes made for like a movie or a TV show, just because the
you're
medium is different.
reading Lord of the Rings again?
Yeah, because I've got the
Oh, that's
the
cool.
all
I,
three in one book
yeah,
essentially.
I have that too. Do you have the one where it has the picture of a picture from Fellowship, or it might have been from Two Towers? I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, I definitely I love the Lord of the Rings books, and I felt the adaptations for that were pretty good. Changes, yeah, but I mean, those were long movies too, so they were able to fit a lot more in.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, especially when you do
especially
it,
the extended editions.
which are better, but 3-4 hour movies.
They're so long.
It's a
It's
long
brutal,
movie.
man. It's
But the extra
brutal.
like half hour in each movie definitely is good. I don't remember which version it is. I don't want to spend too much time, but it's kind of little
Oh,
soft
that's
color.
different from mine.
It's
Mine's a
I believe this is one of the newer ones.
paperback.
Yeah, I mean technically it's paperback or more like a little cloth thing. 'Cause
Gotcha.
I can't remember. I didn't want to spend too much time for like when this one was actually printed. I thought it was fairly recently.
I did want to mention while you're
Yeah.
checking that there was a DS game that I would like to check out. I want to look up whether it's a couple DS games. I want to look up if there's any translations for those. I don't think I'll like them because they're dating sims, but I would like to check it out and see what they look like.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. This is okay. So I had to dig into it. I don't know the exact print date because I saw something that said 2004, but that's not right. This was the 50th anniversary edition print that they had
Oh, that's
because
pretty cool. It looks neat.
it cost me $36 at least when I bought it earlier this year in
Woo.
2024. But it's not like paper, but it's not hardback. It's got this nice little cloth covering to it, which I think is
Yeah, I
nice.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got mine from Kroger when I was like, whenever I think either I think Two Towers might have been coming out. It wasn't whatever new movie was coming out wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
So I got into it. I want to say it was in between Fellowship because I watched Fellowship, really liked it, then wanted to read the book. So I think it was that. I think it was in between Two Towers and that was about to come out. But I was a kid and my grandma got it for me at Kroger. I still, so like the one thing I still have from when I was a kid, I've got like a handful of things. Like I can carry them.
Yeah.
So
But
it's
that
cool to have that.
yeah, and I think it's really cool, but kind of like that because I've talked about it before. I don't know how well you can't really see it on the screen, but because I've shown it before. I don't know if it was on this podcast or the Anime Junction one where I've got the
This is the Anime Junction.
I can't yeah, but I can't remember the anime or the Game Junction that I showed it on. I can't.
Oh, I got
I
you.
know
I
I've done
got you.
it
Yeah.
on the Game Junction one, but the actual hardcover one, the collection they
Yeah.
did, where they
Yeah.
did the first print that I had it, but I didn't want to like ruin that, so I was in the process of buying the actual each
Right.
volume of the light novel itself and reading through it. But I just think yeah, there's some stuff that some minor side plots that get changed or removed, but I don't think it's for the worse for the overall story and for like the pacing of the story. I think it works just
Yeah.
fine. Obviously, go randomly into something that's not anime. I just think it's a good example of necessary changes because the medium just works differently from print
Yeah,
to actual
it
like
does.
video and film and stuff like that.
It does. It looks like there's 16 volumes of the manga, so it's pretty beefy.
Oh yeah,
They could
but
probably get a good like 4 seasons out of that, maybe. Right? I mean,
yeah,
16 volumes, that's a lot.
because
Usually they can get like 2, 3 episodes out of a single volume, sometimes 4.
I was trying to remember. I can't remember exactly because we got 2 seasons of the original, but I can't remember off the top of my head how many
I'm
volumes it
gonna
did, but it didn't go that far. Because I know the
No,
actual
there's only one season, right? Of the original?
there were
Two.
two.
Sorry, two. Yeah,
Yeah,
two.
I just yeah, no, I just can't remember. But I can't remember. Is it? It says there's 24. I can't remember if it's still in the process of being written or there's just 24 is like the end
Oh,
of
the
it.
second season, it just got greenlit for it. So,
No, for the light novel.
oh, that I'm not sure. I saw that there's quite a few. There's radio plays, there's
Yeah,
internet radio shows. There's all kinds of stuff for this. Yeah, it looks like first the Impress has licensed the Wolf and Parchment series with the first volume released in November 17th. So, do you know about that?
I did not.
Yeah. So it looks like there's another series started, but it's a light novel. So
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, no, I don't. It looked like he's still in the process. Which you have the anniversary
theory just
edition.
started talking to me.
It's always fun. So you got the anniversary, but I guess he's still making more. But I guess outside of that, what did you think about actually watching this? Because can't remember how much of the original you've actually watched. But even it's been a
So,
while for me, so like just general thoughts on the show itself that you watched.
well, my background, I read 4 or 5 volumes a long time ago when I was a kid. And I remember liking it a good bit then. I just don't remember. I mean, I can't remember what I read even in the Dragon Ball manga from back then. So, um, details are kind of blurry there on what I actually remember from it. But I went back, watched first episode of the 2008 series today, and then I watched 1 through 5 of the new series because I wanted to do that sort of comparison. And like you were saying, it's sort of an exact, at least for the first episode, that's all I can speak on. It's kind of an exact sort of remake of it, more of like a fresh coat of paint and more of like, yeah, they didn't want to put a third season on when it's this digital animation that looks way different from the original style. It doesn't make much sense to do that, right?
Yeah, it'd be too
So
jarring.
yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I like it, but I could do without the romance part of it, the whole
That's kind of hard to
weird
get away
stuff.
from. You have a male and a
Yeah, I
female
mean
walking
it's like
together.
part. Yeah, it's part of the series. I get that. It's just not my thing. But everything else I thought was really good. I mean, like it's really well. They sort of. It seems like they sort of condensed it down, like you're saying. It didn't feel like there was a bunch of sort of filler in those, at least those first 5 that I watched. I
Yeah.
didn't really
So
feel like that was there at all. It felt very beefy. They're
yeah.
moving on to the next thing right away, but it's a good pace.
Yeah, so from what I remember, the first 3 episodes, it's pretty much exactly the same, minus some differences here or there. Pretty much it's the same show. It's not until about episode 4 onwards that they kind of remove, from what I remember, some of the not necessarily filler. Technically it was filler back at the time. There wasn't a whole lot of it, but they more or less just got rid of some of the side stories that kind of killed the pacing a little bit and just
Yeah.
focused on the actual main story, just to keep the pacing, moving a lot better, and kind of fixing some of the issues with the old series. Definitely know that the
Mhm.
lighting was like one of the big differences that I remember. It's the old one was much more darker in a lot of sense, but outside of that, I just think it was a really good adaptation. Keeps the pacing moving a little bit better. Instead of just dropping a season 3, we'll reintroduce the series to people. A lot of people that probably didn't see it even back then in 2008, just because the anime community was far smaller than it is.
Yeah.
It was far smaller back then than it is today. So in general, just bringing back interest to the show, having the show just kind of work a little bit better, and then trickling into your new content to hopefully adapt the whole light novel. But luckily, it's one of those series that even if they don't end up adapting the whole thing, it sparks interest in the light novel, and I guess the manga.
Yeah.
But I think the manga stopped airing in 2017. Uh, but it brings interest, and they have adapted the light novel in English, so it's not one of those series where you're stuck with the anime only and then maybe fan
Yeah.
translations. You can actually go and actually read the actual story, which, if you're a fan of this, I definitely would recommend reading them. I only have read the first volume,
Yeah.
and that was probably about a year and a half ago. I have a few more, I just haven't got around to reading them since. But I definitely think it's really good, especially if you're into any kind of like light slash comedic romance in some scenes and dealing with medieval economics in another sense, and then just general adventure. So a unique way to kind of mix the three together, and at least to me, I think it works really well.
Yeah. No, I think it was pretty good what I watched, and it was done well.
Yeah, gotta protect Hollow from the church. She's a heretic. But I mean, like, if you know, it makes
She
sense.
immediately says like, "I hate the church" or something like that, something to that extent. I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
I mean, they
okay."
see her as like a pagan god. It makes sense.
Wait,
She talks about
yeah,
she was there hundreds of years ago, and the church was smaller because it wasn't like the dominant religion. If you think of like medieval Europe and how it works,
yeah,
and then obviously over the years, if you know anything about European history, Christianity became the dominant religion in the whole area, and then I mean you get church, you get religion and politics mixing and stuff like that. Um, and just general
Did you
history. But I think it makes sense, kind of passing comments by Hollow about how the world's changed. But they at the end of the day, I don't think she really cares. She just kind of wants to get home.
yeah. Yeah, did you watch the OVA? Because I didn't realize there was two OVAs.
For the original, I probably
Yeah, there was one
did.
for season 1 and one for season 2.
I probably did, but you're probably talking about something that I haven't watched. I probably haven't watched those in 10 years. At
I'd
least
be
those
curious
OVAs.
to see because apparently they're prequels, or at least the second OVA is a prequel.
Yeah,
I can't.
off the top of my head, I can't remember. I don't know if they. Well, it being an OVA, it's probably like its own standalone thing. But the
Yeah,
first
I'm just curious what it was about.
as far as this goes, the first thing I noticed, and I actually kind of like this introduction change from the original, because the original just kind of, from what I remember, kind of gets right into the show.
Mhm.
But with the remake, it kind of starts as, I think you kind of got this Hollow, kind of very obviously talking to her daughter, and so this whole story is more like retelling, life and adventure, like this is how I met your father type thing.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
less of a, it's kind of like uh, telling a story, not just a general, hey, this is a story that like some mythical third person's actually telling.
right. Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I wouldn't mind watching more of it. I started episode 6, I just didn't get to finish it. So got pretty far, more than I mean, I had to do it kind of while I was working too, because I had to
Yeah,
work today. So it was sort of, there were a couple of times I had to like rewind it, and not rewind it, but go back. It's not a VHS tape, but
be kind,
anyway,
rewind.
I had to, yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, it's pretty good stuff.
I don't know about you.
Overall, I thought it was good.
Yeah, I don't know if you plan on actually finishing. I plan on finishing this, and then when season 2 airs, watching it, just because from when I first got into anime back then, around 2010, 2011, this is one of the early shows that I picked up, and I really liked it. I kick it myself it took me this long to actually sit down and
Did
actually
you?
watch it, but I definitely plan on watching this to the end. And I'm sure sometime down the road on this podcast, we're like, oh, hey, I finally finished this. I got,
Yeah,
something a little
no,
bit more to say
I'll
about it.
probably finish it. I liked it, what I watched. Did you actually not get into anime until then? Because I
I think I
mean,
was well
a
into
few
high
years after
school.
that's kind of when we like, sort of reconnected
I think
again. But
junior, senior, it
God, I've
kind of
been into
started.
anime since I was a freaking kid.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think it really blew up until right around my senior year, just out of high school, especially once you have like money, because streaming
yeah,
really wasn't a thing back then. You had to get the physical,
that
and
was the thing.
wasn't
I
cheap.
didn't know anybody that was into manga when I was into it. Nobody cared about it.
Yeah, it's
Like
much more of a niche
nobody.
back then,
Yeah, no, it just was not popular at
or at
all.
least
And you couldn't find anything either. Like a lot of stuff just didn't come over here. We didn't get an anime for it.
yeah.
Like you get the manga, but you wouldn't get the anime.
I mean,
Or
talking.
vice versa sometimes.
I mean, talking with people around my age or slightly younger and stuff that I've worked with, you get the feeling that it was bigger, maybe a little bit. People just didn't come out and talk about it, or maybe just
No, I
it's
think
just
it's
gotten more
bigger
popular
than
over the years. It was just people
I
might
think
have been
people are
into
more
it.
open about
Yeah,
it. Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of things are kind of hidden. Because I mean, you think back to like even when I was in grade school, I had a handful of people, and like obviously you were included, but there was a handful of people that were like really into games like that enough where we were talking about it. It's very all that stuff was like very had its niches, you know what I mean?
Oh
And
yeah.
to me, it was like all encompassing, all of it. You talk about Lord of the Rings, it was the same thing as talking about video games and anime to me. It was just all encompassing. I was just in that culture.
Yeah, the same thing
Um,
where D&D kind of used to be looked down upon, and now it's like
right,
accepted as like
yeah.
mainstream, like
Now it's
culture.
freaking more popular than I could have ever imagined as a kid. And I got into tabletop games briefly as well. And still enjoyed them. It's just like I don't know anybody, so there's nothing I can do about it. I just don't know anybody like locally. I know people, just not locally that can I can play it with. So
Yeah. But I guess
going
moving
off on
on.
tangent.
Yeah, hey, it's always good stuff. I know you didn't see this because I was originally gonna watch the Transformers movie, Transformers One, but
Yeah, you gonna watch that?
I saw this and I was down in Salt Lake, and this is like my one chance to see it, and I was like, I know it's airing, but like, how often do I get to see like anime and stuff in theaters? Uh,
Frustrating. I've been waiting for you to watch Transformers.
yeah, I'm sorry. It worked out here for this podcast instead of the other one, but
Yeah,
I believe it's Don. They called it First Encounter, so it was a counter. So it was a they shoving the first three episodes into like an
a
exclusive
butt.
premiere in theaters type thing. Uh, but they had it at least when I went to see. They had some extra like 15-20 minutes of hey, we're talking to the two main voice actors for the male and female lead, talking to the anime director and then the original manga writer artist and stuff like that. The I didn't really review. It's neat to hear from these people, but it's not like they're asking hard questions like, "Oh yeah, this is my thoughts on it," and just
Yeah,
it's neat to see, but it's kind of generic, kind of what you expect from people trying to promote a new IP. But I also think it kind of fits because I saw it, didn't know anything about it till I walked in, other than the fact it was like, "Hey, this is an anime that's coming out later this year, like in the fall for the or later in October for the fall anime season." So you essentially get like a quick few week early preview because probably gonna go in and start watching the one anime a week. It sucks. Gotta wait till episode 4 comes out. But I saw it and I kind of immediately saw this and fell in love with it. And I think it's perfect for it to be coming out in October because I don't want to necessarily. It doesn't really deal with horror, though. You could probably see horror elements here or there. It just kind of adds to
hmm
the atmosphere. It's more of like a supernatural thriller because it deals with the supernatural ghosts and then like aliens and type thing that you don't people some people believe in one and not the other, and it's kind of neat. Plus it's got general good enough action and then very obvious uh romantic comedy elements to the show. It'd probably be the best genre definition for it. And then for those that care, I don't even know if you know what this is. That main female lead is technically considered a gairu, if that's how you say it. That whole fashion. She's got friends that definitely look more into it with that weird fashion Japanese trend that started like back in like the 80s or something like that. But it definitely deals with your main female character lead. She believes more in ghosts, but the main male character definitely believes more in aliens. And it's kind of neat how they kind of interact because she's, without ruining it, she kind of had this feeling of like this guy that she liked when she was like really young, kind of like laugh at her, or, something like that, without like ruining it too much. But she like wants like a man's man essentially. So she sees the main character who's sorry, his name's Ken. The main female character is Momo. I had to pull it up real quick. Sees him being bullied. She like goes in front of him, and everyone kind of gets scared. She's just like, "Oh, y'all are just a bunch of weaklings and stuff like that. Like you're pathetic." But he immediately like, "Oh, she must be into this." Jumps into it because he's like a nerd who's really into aliens that has no friends. And then it kind of goes into like, oh, they're like fighting each other, even though her other friends kind of see it as like, oh, she must really be into him because it's just like a weird interaction you don't see her do with a bunch of guys a whole often. And it starts with her daring him to go to like a haunted place for ghosts, and then he dares her to go to a haunted place for like alien encounters. It's kind of like a bet to see whoever wins
yeah.
what. And it kind of goes into, hey, you both might be right, and then the story kind of ensues to a bunch of weird stuff. Uh, it's kind of more just like a quick definition for the first episode. I think that's where about that ends. I don't want to like go too far into it and like spoil it, even though it's the first few episodes. But uh, lo and behold, you're kind of right. This the supernatural to some degree is definitely real, because that's a major plot for the show, obviously. So I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, and I saw it, and I was like, it's not necessarily straight horror, but supernatural might be a thing that you're definitely into.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I know.
So, what?
I guess
I guess
you call it the occult would probably be another good way to feel
yeah,
it deals with.
yeah, something like that, supernatural being sort of thing. Is it? What if you had to give it like a sort of rating? What would you rate it? Like, is it something? I don't understand what type of show it is by your description. Like, I get the
I know
concept.
I'm not the.
What genre of series is it? Because
Uh,
anime are very defined to their
I guess
genres.
the
It
the
seems
best
like.
would be like a supernatural thriller would be like the best definition, because it deals with like the occult with like ghosts and aliens type thing. The problem is you only saw the first 3 episodes. I think there's a lot of hope, and I definitely enjoyed what I saw. I'd say at least and I'm far more strict on my actual ratings. I think it's a properly around a 7.5 out of 10 just from the first 3.
Okay.
Just because I don't know where the rest of the show would go, whether it's gonna be good or bad.
Right.
Obviously, the manga for this aired back in 2021. It's still airing in the Shonen Jump. So if it's picked up this quickly, there's some decent amount of popularity that was for this manga that people
Yeah, there
really
must
liked.
be.
Um, I
I
don't. I
don't.
think
The
it's
name's
good.
kind of weird. Is that the guy's name?
No, the kid's name is Ken. He's the main.
I wonder what the name means. If there's like, if that's like
I,
a
I
meaning
remember
or
them
something, because
talking
it's like
about it.
an odd name.
So Don means bold, Da means big, and then there's a different Don as far as the actual characters kind of means party from what I saw from a few different things. So from what the Don Don Wikipedia is saying, it roughly translates into bold party,
Bold party.
which I don't know if
Interesting.
there's like a hidden meaning as far as that. You're dealing with different languages that I just don't speak, different meanings. I thought the actual it had something like a rough meaning in Japanese based on, like, I thought how it was kind of like spelled, but it was more nonsense than anything else. It's just kind of like uh I believe some of the kanjis related to different characters. Uh,
Hmm.
but just like a heads up, before the serialization, Yuki Nobu Tatsu previously worked as an assistant for the manga Chainsaw Man, and
Oh,
a
interesting.
and I believe the artist, if this is right, Yuji Kaku, if it's the right name, I'm not reading the wrong thing. The artist on this also worked as the artist on Hell's Paradise, uh, Jigoku Kuraku. Uh, don't know anything about that. But there's
Nice.
I saw some scenes from the show or from the manga that there are clips of where it definitely looks kind of spooky, a little creepy, definitely. But I think it definitely works for a more supernatural type show.
Now the obviously, I don't know when this is going to be uploaded, but did you play Zelda?
The
I
new one
just
that just came
just
out. Oh, you're asking me.
yeah.
I haven't got around to playing it yet. No.
Okay, I was just curious.
Why'd you want to know? Did you get around to playing a little bit more? Or
I didn't get to play anymore. No. Well, that's a lie. I got to play for like half an hour or more, but I finished up the first boss, first dungeon, I guess.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
No,
I
that's
was just curious.
yeah. But as far as like the Don to Don, this episode will be coming out on, I believe, the 6th of October, and this anime starts airing on the 3rd of
Well,
October. So by the time this
hopefully.
by the time this should air, the very least the first episode of this anime will have started airing. So
That's cool. Might
uh,
have to check it out. Maybe we can come back around to this and talk about it.
I guess I don't have a full taste, but I know it's not really horror, but the supernatural. If you have any kind of interest in that, I think you'll like this show. I don't know, you might hate any kind of romance element, so that might be a buzzkill for the show, because it's
Well,
kind of
it's
obvious.
just I guess my problem with the romance element of it is it's weird because it's as you said, pagan god. It's not really a human, so that's where I find it a little odd.
For
It's
Hollow and
mostly that part. Yeah, it's mostly that part. I mean, she got the red eyes, the tail.
I mean, she's
Um,
technically a wolf,
it's a
so
little of well, yeah, it's just a little weird to me. So
that's
yeah.
what it is. That's just par for the course when it comes to anime.
Well,
Uh,
that's the problem.
but regardless
That's the
of
problem these
how I
days.
butcher the show for the most part, if you have any interest in like supernatural, general action, romantic / comedy type stuff, or a mixture of all three, I think you'll like it. Or just at the very least, I say, hey, give it a
Yeah.
shot, especially if you already it's airing on a streaming site. I thought this was coming to Netflix, but I might be slightly misremembering
Are you
that.
talking about Spice and Wolf or Dan the Dan?
Dan to Dan.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I see some stuff on here where they're saying, hey, it's Crunchyroll, Netflix, Hulu for the licensed streaming, but that might be
Well, that
for
it's
different
weird about
regions.
that. Yeah, it's got to be because when I looked up Spice and Wolf, it said it was on Disney Plus. It said it was on Hulu. I watched on Amazon.
It's
It's
on
on. It
it's
says it's
on
on
Amazon,
Crunchyroll. It's on.
but if you have a
I had to
Crunchyroll
do the Crunchyroll trial,
yeah,
7 day trial to watch this crap.
if you have a Crunchyroll subscription, there's an agreement with Amazon Prime, so you don't necessarily have to watch it through Amazon, or some you might have to for Crunchyroll, but a lot of them you can watch on
Well,
Amazon
there's
Prime as
no.
well.
I only did because of the trial. The
Yeah.
Crunchyroll didn't have a trial through just Crunchyroll, so
Yeah, but there's a lot of different streaming sites that have like agreements with that. I think like Paramount Plus is one of them that you can have like a subscription to them, but watch it on like
yeah,
Amazon's website. So
right.
yeah, regardless of where this is for you, I definitely think it's at least worth a shot, because it's definitely not a genre that I'm like a big fan in, but I seem to like it, so that's either a good or a bad sign, I guess, for you.
Yeah, potentially a bad sign. Just
Yeah, who
kidding.
knows? But I guess moving on. That I kind of mentioned, this movie is airing in theaters on the 26th to the 30th, thanks to G Kids. Check their site or check local listings for theaters that are actually going to do this. But I know you're a huge fan of KiKi's delivery service.
If things don't work out, you can always come home.
And come back a failure? Ugh.
Yes. Yeah. That is one anime movie that has stuck with me since I was a kid. I don't really know what it was about that, but something about the sort of adventure of being a kid and leaving home and just kind of being on your own. I always fantasize that.
Yeah.
Like fantasized that. I think I'm saying it right. Like Ash leaving home, like that was the one that kind of kickstarted that, like going on an adventure, discovering things. And it has that sort of childlike sort of innocence to the movie. Like it's like a Disney movie essentially. Like that's kind of how it plays itself. I always found that sort of fascinating. It was different for anime at the time, at least the things that I saw, because it was a more innocent like movie. It wasn't a Spirited Away where there was like sort of, you could almost say, like horror elements to it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like almost. Yeah. And so this was, although she's a witch, there's nothing that really happens. Like there's not a, I don't know how to explain it, but it's not like a lot that really happens in the movie. It's very simplistic. It's very much face value. Like I said, it's very much like a Disney movie, the way that it plays out. And I've always loved that, because while a lot of other anime that I watch at the time, and especially other Ghibli movies, like had a lot more adult elements to it, more things that I maybe didn't understand at the time. The first time I watched this, I had it on VHS when I was like 8 years old. So I watched this since I was a kid, and it's really one of the things, along with Pokemon, that kind of kickstarted my anime obsession as a kid, and it's why I loved it. I watched things pretty early on. I mean, I remember I must have been probably 7. I watched Sailor Moon for
Yeah.
the first time. It was airing on that Japanese station and like things like that. I just loved I love the aesthetic of anime. So like it captured me very early on. It was one of the earliest things I watched, and I've just loved it since then. And I love every Ghibli film for different reasons that I've watched. I haven't watched one I dislike. I have ones that I don't like as much. And then I have ones like, that like Ponyo, where people don't even talk about it, but I love it. And again, that's another one that sort of plays out like a Disney film. And I like that for what it is. I don't need everything to be either raunchy or, super violent or things like all the time. It's like a palate cleanser if you're, watching different things. Even if you're watching, like a normal American movie or something. But it just felt like that. It felt very innocent. And if you watch back on some of the DVD extras and things for KiKi delivery service, it's very interesting because the people that were working on the film, they said I forget what they were taking. They were taking something LSD or something when they were working on the film, something like that.
That's crazy.
I saw something crazy.
If that's true, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, whatever. It's very interesting though. But it's cool to see them storyboard these films too. Have you ever watched that in any of the extras or anything on YouTube, like for some of the Ghibli films?
For the Ghibli, maybe like once or twice I've probably seen it.
It's just so interesting the way that they work out movies differently than I've seen for any other animated movie. It's really cool, and they're very cohesive. And obviously the Japanese work culture is entirely different than here. It's just very interesting. So if you ever get the chance to, watch any of that, I definitely recommend it. But the stuff behind KiKi's delivery service is really cool. And you've watched it, so what are your thoughts? Since you don't like love it or anything.
No, I just think it's a classic film. It wasn't my first, so probably why I didn't fall in love with it. But I think it's a classic. Kind of going out the general coming of age story, but also there's like a mixture of like the loss of innocence is like as you kind of grow up and get older.
Mhm.
I can't remember at the end whether she stops hearing her cat talk to her, I think, and that's supposed to like represent her loss of innocence growing up and stuff like that. That's you don't have that childhood innocence. The cat's name is Gigi, sorry. So it's kind of like growing up. Could she ever properly talk to it, or has she just it was just like a childhood thing that she used when she was growing up?
Yeah, that's what it was supposed to represent. So you nailed it on the head. You're getting older. You've lost sort of your innocence. Childhood is kind of over, and it's that sort of next chapter. It leads into that next chapter of life. So it represents a lot of very interesting stuff, and I love it. I think it's great. So I definitely recommend it. I think everybody should watch it if you like anime, or if you like Studio Ghibli, or even if you don't like anime. I mean, I think it's a great just film. You don't even have to be an anime fan to watch that one. If you ask me, like there's especially some of the Ghibli films. Like I said, Ponyo's another one where it's like you don't even have to know that's anime to enjoy the film.
Yeah,
so,
but I think everybody could enjoy these. But it's kind of a thing because I've never actually read this. It was obviously based on a novel of the same name by Eiko Kodono, but apparently it originally was deviated heavily from the original novel that she wrote, and apparently at the time there was like she had like major issues. But apparently they say since she's reconciled with the Miyazaki, and apparently there is a more faithful live action film adaptation to the book that came out in March of 2014 that I didn't know about until a little while ago.
No way.
Yeah, because I always watch that. I always knew it was based off the book or a book, but I didn't realize it was like very heavily differentiated from the book. So I don't know. I've never read the book. I don't know exactly what it deviates, but I think it's kind of interesting the fact that there's a live action. I don't know how good it actually is, but it's supposed to be more. I don't know how
you could do that in live action. That's kind of where I'm like, I don't even do that live action.
I mean, I guess you could do because outside of her flying on the broom, there's a lot of scenes where it's not super fantastical.
But
like
you
some of
just
those other
said
movies are.
The problem there, her flying on the broom, like they're not going to do that well. I can't imagine. Japanese films almost never have a budget.
Like because you need some level of if not CG, green screen stuff like that. But that's outside of that, which is really only seen on the early on, because I think for a large portion of the film, she just struggles to even be able to fly anymore. It's kind of like a down to earth slice of life esque movie for the most part, as you just adapting with the challenges of life.
A lot of learning about work and learning about because she obviously all that stuff happens, and you're learning all the things to lead to growing up. And I feel like that probably for the author probably represented how they felt at the time, and this was like their sort of this is how they kind of felt about that period of life, because that is a weird sort of period of life where you're like 11, 12, leading into being a teenager, and it's just that sort of, um, it just kind of represents that, because it is like a weird period of life. Things start to happen to you. You start growing hair in weird places.
Just being a teenager in general is just a miserable experience. I wouldn't
It
go back and
really,
do it again.
really freaking is. It's horrible. I don't recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, but outside of that, definitely if you haven't, one of the few people that actually hasn't seen this film that came out in, I believe, '89. This movie came out
It
before we were
won
even
a
born.
ton of awards, by the way. I was
Yeah.
looking at the award list, like, holy crap, and for good reasons. Very good.
Yeah, definitely would recommend it. Might have to check out maybe not the novel, but this live action if I can find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna 100% watch that, because I'm just curious. I don't know if it could be outdone for me, but if it like just represented the movie well, I'd be happy.
Yeah, but for
Um,
those, like, if you're able to find a theater it's through G Kids website, but I'm sure you could find it. At the end of October,
Will that be
it's gonna
airing? Like, does that air before this will be out though?
Yes, this episode should be out on the 6th. This is airing in theaters October 26th through the 30th of 2024.
Oh, okay.
If you're watching this episode when it comes out, like right around the time this comes out live, obviously, if you're watching this way down the future, I mean, who knows when G Kids could do another one of their Ghibli Fest type things again. Because I've only been able to see like one or actual two movies in theaters.
And I also will say, just quickly, I highly recommend getting the Blu-ray, because there's a lot of extra stuff on it. I was talking about a little bit of it, but it's also like you can find it pretty cheap. I think I picked it up on eBay for like $14. And yeah, I
got the
definitely
Disney
recommend
one.
it. It also looks better than how it's going to watch in any streaming service. Physical media always looks better, but it legitimately does look better. I've watched it streaming again, and I watched the Blu-ray, and it looks way better. So I just recommend that experience. So
I'm slowly building my my Ghibli collection, and some of the ones I'm trying to replace with the Steelbook series that they were doing.
do you actually watch them though? Because it's like a weird thing that's happening right now, where people are collecting physical media but don't touch it.
No, because I always open them up, and if I don't watch it right away, I eventually will watch them. I collect physical
So, like,
media.
you put those in rather than streaming if you're able to.
Oh,
Like,
100%, because it just looks better.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it definitely does. You can never get like original quality with streaming.
Yeah.
It's just like that defeats the whole. It's compressed.
Yeah, periodically, because if I have it on the physical, I'd rather watch it than streaming, because sometimes it just looks nicer. But sometimes my internet goes down, so now I only have physical media. But when I collect physical media, I collect it because I plan on actually watching it. It's not gonna sit on a shelf collecting dust. Because at that point, it's like, oh, if I'm never gonna watch this again, why do I still have it? I'm just gonna get rid of it.
Right, and I will say this too. We rewatched this about a year ago, my VHS tape. And there's something to be said about that analog experience with these analog made films that were hand drawn. There's something about that just fits, because they were made for VHS, if that makes any sense. Like, it was made for that format. There's something about watching it that way rather than like super cleaned up that's also like a really good experience. And it's like the way I remember it as a kid too. So there's something to that. So if there's like any of the like original Sailor Moon or Dragon Ball Z or even original Pokemon, there's something to that experience. I don't know if you've got a VHS player or anything like that. But there is something to that.
Yeah, I mean, you say that. Because I only have two physical VHSs. One I mentioned before, the first three OVA for Tenchi Muyo, which is really what got, because I just found this at some random thrift store. But the other one,
that's cool. I would love to pick
was
that
like the
up.
oldest, the first one I remember, the first movie I ever owned, the Jimmy Neutron movie, which I still like watching even to this day.
Yeah, that's a funny one. I've got some stories behind that I would love to talk about sometime. Some really interesting stories.
Yeah, just don't. I haven't in years actually had a proper VHS player, so those I just have. They're kind of collecting, but
I would keep an eye
them
out for one, because they've shot up in price. So like the best way to try to find one is like a thrift store or something like that. They're like over $100 if you look. I was looking at them not too long ago because I was curious. I've got one that works, one that needs recapped, and I just have not had time to try to do it, put new capacitors in it. But Yeah, there's something to that experience because legitimately, because I'll throw on the VHS all the time because I've just got it right over here. So I'll throw it on the little tiny CRT or whatever while I'm working and just watch it like this. That's how I've got it. And there's something to that experience. So that's definitely something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, it's a neat little thing from at least from our childhood that we remember watching. But mentioned it before. Obviously, this is airing the first Sunday of October, and October essentially for us is right around the corner. Is there outside of because I know we're watching Chainsaw Man next week. Is there any like manga or anime Halloween horror thing that you remember watching that left an impact or that you really enjoyed, or maybe one that you obviously want to watch?
Pokemon is one because there were Halloween episodes for Pokemon.
Yeah, Halloween specials.
Hamtaro, I remember
It's
Halloween
Hamtaro
special.
time.
And it's anime, but legitimately. What else? I might have to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head. I know we've got something going on here shortly, but
yeah,
there's definitely some stuff, so we might have to look.
Yeah, because I had a list of stuff that either that I knew was big or that I have watched. So I know the one a lot of people know from like a scene where a girl trips and like has like an umbrella like go through the bottom of her through the bottom out the top of her skull, which is called Another. I have the anime. I never really actually watched the anime, but I bought the manga for it and I actually read the full manga all the way through. That is definitely an experience where it's like, hey, how can I kill a bunch of high school kids in the most horrific way?
Yeah,
it's like the epitome of horror.
The Hamtaro episode is called Ham Halloween, so I remember it because I remember Hamtaro wearing the Frankenstein mask.
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
Because there was a Orbit, there was a I don't even know what you would call those were called, like the picture ones. Do you remember what those were called? There was I guess it would be like a PNG or whatever, but I didn't know if it had a name. I can't remember. But there was one of Hamtaro with the Frankenstein. It was like super expensive. It was an old rare one.
That was
like
on Cartoon Orbit, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I remember that one.
Remember
I remember like some of the
stuff would be like unaffordable.
Yeah, because how you get the in-game currency. I know stuff like one of the Dragon Ball Z ones were like super expensive.
Oh, there's a couple.
I remember those, the Hamtaro one, but there's a lot that were like considered like rare.
Yeah. There was some that still to this day I've never gotten. So
yeah, but
I think a good, I guess quickly to send it out here, a good anime to have you watch since you haven't watched it and we were talking about it the other day. It'd be cool to have you watch like the first 3 or 5 episodes of Bleach and talk about that because that's a really good series that kind of deals with demons and stuff like that.
The whole supernatural.
I guess the underworld and stuff. So
I guess in the same boat, Yu Yu Hakusho would fall into that. Maybe not
I
horror,
would watch
but like
that anytime.
it's definitely heavily in the supernatural and
spirits
stuff like that.
And demons.
I mean, he's quite literally a spirit detective.
Yeah. So that I think those both would be good to do for weeks.
Yeah, but I do have a list.
We know we wanted to revisit Yu, so
yeah. But I did put a list of like 2 that I know were big, but I haven't watched, and 2 that I have. So the 2 that I know are Halloween related, but I personally have got around to watching. One's a series called Serial Experiments Lane, which I knew used to be really big.
Yeah, I remember.
I don't remember a whole lot about it at this point because I never watched it. And the other one was a movie called Perfect Blue, which I do know at times is kind of trippy from what I've seen with the show. For the most, I've kind of been spoiled on that movie, but I know it's kind of trippy and horror-esque at the very least. I think it fits perfectly.
I haven't heard of it, so I'm not.
The other 2, sure. I'm pretty sure. I know we watched one, but I thought we watched both of them. So one is Elfen Lied, the infamous first episode, which is just crazy.
We watched that together,
or at least at the time.
It was a wild beginning.
It was
the beginning of that was brutal.
I think the whole show is brutal. Like I don't.
To be fair, I mean, it is.
I don't want to go back and rewatch
opening,
it.
I'm like, whoa, it's shocking.
Yeah, especially as like a kid that's like I've never seen.
We just hadn't seen an animated show that got that gruesome. It was like that can happen.
Hey, it knows how to grab your attention in the first episode.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
And the other one was a show called Mirai Nikki.
Never heard of that.
Sorry, one. I didn't write the English translation down. I had to pull up real quick. Called Future Diary. It's one of those if you've seen it, you've seen it.
I know that one.
I can't remember the actual proper yonder that this chick is, but she's like
that came out
super obsessed with him.
I watched this because this came out just a few years before we got into anime and stuff. kind of again, or we're talking about it and stuff, because I picked up the manga.
Yeah.
So that was one I liked.
The anime started airing in October of 2011 and it ended in April of 2012. It was like 26 episodes.
Yeah. So that was just a few years before that.
It was definitely crazy. It was like some kind of like a death battle royale type thing. But
yeah,
it definitely...
those were very popular at the time because what was the one anime or manga that kind of kicked that off? That is the reason we have Hunger Games, and I watched the movie for it. I cannot remember what it's called though.
It's a live action movie, right?
Yeah, there's several of them. Japanese live action
movie. I thought
movie
it was
where
just
they're
maybe called
teenagers on the island.
Battle Royale.
It might be called just Battle Royale. I can't remember.
The English. I was trying to look for it.
It very well might be, but it's like pretty much what inspired and kickstarted that whole genre, essentially. Let's see, Japanese movie. Trying to double check, but there was a couple of them. Yeah, it's just called Battle Royale.
It came out in 2000.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Way more brutal than Hunger Games.
If I've seen that, surprisingly, it's got the critics.
You should watch it.
It's got a 90 on Rotten.
It's good.
Rotten Tomato. Oh, a 90 from the critics and 89 from the audience.
Yeah, you should watch it. It's very Japanese, but it's very brutal, man.
But thinking of just like general horror movies like this, maybe this might be more of like a thriller.
This would be
horror.
a good one to.
But these types of films are usually really good, or they're just absolute
really
dog
bad.
crap.
Yeah.
Or that's just.
And it's surprising because it's an Anchor Bay published movie, which is they use that it's hit or miss. But it's brutal, man. It's really good though.
I have to watch it anyways. It's Halloween.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, it'd be cool to talk about it for a segment.
As much as I was entertained by Future Diary, kind of like Elfen Lied, it's one of those like I don't have an interest to go back and rewatch it. Obviously, there's revelations later in the series that maybe you saw it coming when I was younger, like a teenager.
Yeah,
I didn't as much. Makes a lot of things make sense, but it's just a really brutal show in a lot of ways.
Right.
But I thought it definitely fit the whole horror / Halloween aesthetic. So I think those are four really, at least really decent shows that either I know for a fact that I've seen, or I know I haven't necessarily seen, should have seen them by now, but they've gotten like rave reviews and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah. Yeah, do you have anything else you want to bring up or before you head out of here?
No, I think we kind of closed out on everything. So we got some stuff coming for the month of October, which is cool. I'm glad we got that planned out. And we'll have some cool stuff coming. Yeah,
definitely appreciate this. But for those that aren't aware, we also have on the Game Junction page, we have the Game Junction podcast that we do every Sunday afternoon, or Sunday evening technically, and then obviously this pre-recorded podcast comes out every Sunday at noon Eastern. I think it's 8 p.m. Eastern for the Anime Junction podcast. Yeah. I'm not Eastern time, so I got to do a little bit of quick math.
No, you're good. I always have to do that too.
But we definitely appreciate everyone's support. Let us know kind of what you thought, down in the comments below, what you want to see. I know some of you kind of commented on what you do want to see, and we definitely noticed that, and we'll definitely talk about it. There's a lot of anime to talk about, and just trying to get things properly spaced out and figured out as far as like how we want to watch stuff in order.
It's good because it leaves us kind of open. There's so much, there's so much. There's almost too much that like we got a lot to pick from. So,
but no, definitely appreciate your support. Let you know what you want us to talk about, what you thought. We will see you all next week.
Later.
Peace out, everybody.